Wherever you are in the world, welcome to another edition of Jerry's Take on China. Poverty alleviation in China is very real. But China's poverty alleviation is a strange dichotomy. There probably isn't a person in the developed world who doesn't know that 800 million Chinese people have been lifted out of poverty. But at the same time, it's not well known how that came about. And because of this, some people actually question the reality of it. I've heard some people say that China lowered the definition of poverty and therefore lifted millions above it. But anyone who has witnessed the changes to regions such as Ningxia and Guangxi, or provinces such as Yunnan, Gansu and Guizhou over the last 10 years, would have no questions about this. Sealed roads now lead into every village in China. Mud huts and cave dwellings have been replaced by modern living accommodation. Old wooden structures that used to serve as restaurants and stores by the sides of the roads in rural areas are now air-conditioned, windowed, concrete and brick buildings. Remote villages, which had very little to offer except the beautiful environment in which they exist, now have guest houses, restaurants, even bars and coffee shops for city visitors to part with their money. There are bankers and there are economists who ask, is it sustainable or is it cost effective? And the answer to these questions in some respects might be no, it isn't. But to China, its government and its people, the answer is clearly yes, because it's important to the people. It will be sustained, no matter what the cost. And really, if we look at it, cost is a relative thing. To a World Bank executive, one of whom actually did question the sustainability and the cost effectiveness of this, of course, it probably isn't good enough for them. The return on investment, if indeed there ever is one, might be years away. The roads to mountains, the roads into villages or train lines into a rural town might take a lifetime to repay themselves. Perhaps they never will. But China has actually made those investments anyway, knowing this. And their reasoning is valid. The international banker could take that money, that income, and make a few percentage points. But the Chinese farmer, on the other hand, during the same period, might have made enough money to buy some machinery to make his work easier. He might have earned enough money to send a child to university and even build a solid 3-bedroom house. He might also have made enough money to reach the threshold of tax payments. And so then the country, China, starts to get a small return on its investment. But this farmer isn't alone. He's one of millions of rural residents now experiencing those benefits. And what the boardrooms of finance capitals around the world fail to grasp is that poverty alleviation isn't about cost effectiveness or return on investment. It's about people and how to give them a better life. Poverty alleviation isn't one scheme or one program. It certainly isn't a charity either. It's a wide-ranging strategy. It might even be called a philosophy to do the best that can be done with the resources available. Every region has different needs. A mountain in Fujian might be the perfect place for growing tea. The hills in Guangxi might be perfect for cultivating rice, while a desert in Xinjiang can be turned into an oasis resort for growing grapes. What's important is that China is finding out what's best for the region, and it's making resources available in the form of skills, expertise, and materials to make it happen. And a great example can be found in the villages of Longshen, Longji. This is about 100 kilometers north of Guilin in the Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region. This is world famous now for its mountainous rice terraces, which for millennia local farmers, mostly Dong, Miao, Zhuang or Yao people, 4 of China's 56 ethnicities, have eked out a subsistence living by growing rice in very small fields terraced out of the mountain. It's back-breaking, relentless work. But now it's different. It's still hard work. Rice is still growing in these incredible terraces, but much of the work is done by machine. The machines are not bought or paid for by the sale of rice. There just wouldn't be enough money for that. The Chinese government has built a road into and through the valley, so if you want to enter and you are not a resident of the region, you pay an entry fee of 60 RMB. That's our fee to visit one of the most beautiful and spectacular regions of southern China. The income from the entry fee is shared between local administrators and the regional government. Part of it will be used to pay for the infrastructure that's needed, and part of it is used to improve the lives of the people. And this is where the money for the machinery comes from. But for us, the visitor, it gets better. It just keeps getting better. If you want to visit the region for longer than a day, you can now stay in one of the newly constructed guest houses. Each of them is built in exactly the same style and method as 100 or 1,000 years ago. There's no glue, there are no bricks, no nails are used. The buildings are constructed of wood, which is provided by the government from sustainable forest. The skills needed to build them are handed down locally, taught by the elders to the younger generation, and villagers are encouraged to use local laborers for all construction. Rocks and stones to make the foundations of the building are sourced from the river, and even the roofing tiles are made in local kilns from local clay, and that kiln has been in operation for generations. The guest houses, where poverty alleviation really becomes interesting, were discovered through a very interesting way. Local officials were exploring options, and it was clear there was nowhere for visitors to stay. So some people were asked if they would give up parts of their homes as bed and breakfast rooms. These are large homes. Those that agreed were trained in hospitality free of charge. Parts of their homes were fitted out as guest rooms with private bathrooms, modern Western-style furniture, and all of this was free of charge. The room fees that we, the guests, pay are shared for the first 5 years. 1/3 goes to the owner of the home, 1/3 goes to the company that fitted out the rooms, and 1/3 goes to the local government to cover and recover their costs. After 5 years, 100% of the income, minus personal income tax, will go to the homeowner. The farmers there are still farmers, but they also have another job description now. They are custodians of a living museum. Their farming life is easier because of the machines they have. Their family life is richer and their environment has improved. Money is being made, money is being saved, and money is being invested in a region that was, until recent years, nothing more than a subsistence farming environment, albeit a very beautiful one. I've been lucky enough to experience this with several trips to Guangxi. The first in 2005, where I spent days in villages meeting people who got water from a river or a well, and they shared their earthen homes with chickens. They were eating dinner by the light of a single electric bulb. Not anymore. Poverty alleviation is nationwide. In 2014, I traveled through some of the poorest regions of China: Ningxia, Gansu, and Xinjiang. I was on a long bicycle ride. I saw extreme poverty. I saw people living in caves and wooden constructions. We can hardly call these houses. I saw goods taken to market by donkey or by carts. And then in 2019, I traveled through the same regions again, by bicycle again. And I saw in just 5, nearly 6 years, there were no more donkeys. Many people had cars, motorbikes with trailers, and there were shopping centers there with car parks. There were new apartment buildings. And there is still evidence of how people used to live, but that evidence is slowly disappearing as poverty is replaced by moderate prosperity. In 2014, there were only wooden structures along this road. Now, we can stop for a meal in a store like this. There's a great deal of work still to be done, and there are still many people in China who are poor, but none of them are so poor that they can't eat, clothe, house themselves, or see their children get a proper education. The poverty of previous generations was replaced 10 or 15 years ago by hope, and that hope has now been realized. It's not easy to imagine what 800 million people look like. Numbers such as this become mind-numbing statistics, but these are real people with real lives and real feelings. And they are more than the combined population of the USA at 335 million and the European Union at 448 million. Let me repeat that because it's such an incredible statistic, it might not quite sink in. The number of people lifted out of extreme poverty in China is greater than the entire population of the European Union and the United States combined. Don't let anyone tell you that poverty alleviation isn't a modern miracle. Don't believe anyone who tells you China didn't do anything special. Don't be misled into thinking that this was some kind of paper exercise to propagandize the world into thinking China is something that it isn't. The evidence inside of China, if you want to come and look, is clear. This has been and continues to be the greatest social movement in the world. And whether we like it or not, it was done by the Communist Party of China, working with the people of China, for the people of China. Thanks once again for watching Jerry's Take on China, and I'll see you next time. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe. See you soon.